Hello, everybody. I'm Edwin Eisendrath, and this is It's the Democracy Stupid, now in its new live time on Fridays. And I am thrilled to be joined by Ezra Levin, who is, of course, the co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible. And you have to be under a rock not to know what Indivisible is, because it's a movement that's spread across the country and from cities to farm towns in blue states, in red states. It's really swept the whole country, and it's probably now the biggest pro-democracy movement we've ever had in the United States. Ezra, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Edwin, I'll talk anytime.
Yeah. Americans have good reason to worry that people in Congress, no longer work for them. They work for the map makers. They work for the money.
Yep.
And I think many in Congress actually think they work for the map makers and the money and not the people who sent them there. But the Indivisible movement has shown that even now, when we work together, when we stand together, that we have incredible power. And I think that's come as a welcome surprise to most Americans and a huge shock to some members in Congress.
Yeah, look, we live in a constitutional republic still, Edwin. And
Yes.
The way this is structured is we elect leaders and we parcel out our power. It all originates with us. All power in this country originates with us. We parcel it out to leaders who get to use it for a short period of time. We call that a term of office. And then those leaders come back and say, hey, we want to borrow that power for a while longer. And we call that an election. But it still remains the case that the power is with us. I think the reason why people grow so cynical about our political system is because they see with their own eyes exactly what you just said, that those politicians, they're not actually responding to the people. And you might ask yourself, well, why not? Why isn't that happening if all power originates with us? And it comes down to something very simple. It's an organizing challenge. It is an organizing challenge. The way our democracy is set up, if you are an individual, you have basically no power. You got to be really rich or really famous to actually have power in this political system. But if you're a group of individuals, if you are a group of people, especially if you're geographically based, and you all together focus on your city council person, your state rep, your state senator, your representative, your U.S. senator, suddenly you do have power. And so it's easy to think, well, we don't have any power because I look at things and my rep isn't responding to me. That is true on one level. But if you do the work, which is not simple work, but if you do the work, they got to respond to you because otherwise they lose their power. And the basic idea of Indivisible is nothing more complicated than we're wild enough to think that in a representative democracy, your representatives ought to represent you, and that politics is just too important to be left up to the politicians. If we're going to have a functioning democracy, we got to actually participate in this democracy and not just point fingers and get angry at the people who are failing us.
Yeah, I mean, I have two thoughts about that. One is this is an old idea, and all the progress we've ever made in this country has come from organizing, and we kind of lost that muscle for a while, and now we have to get it back. And the other is, well, never mind. The other's irrelevant, actually.
I think we talked about this when we talked last time. It is an extremely old idea. In fact, I would go so far as to argue it is as old as humankind itself. We have 200,000 years of Homo sapien history of us gathering together in small groups to protect the community against the saber-toothed tigers. We are the descendants of people who organized together for the safety of the community. The people who refused to organize, they got eaten by the tigers. We are organizers. We are meant to gather together geographically in order to protect and represent ourselves effectively. And so I do think there's a lot about this idea that is difficult to monetize. So you don't see the tech fascists actually capitalizing on it. And in fact, what they want to do is isolate you and extract from you. It happens to be the exact same thing what Donald Trump and the fascists want to do. They want to make you feel like you're all alone, and they want you to give up what little power you have individually and separate you from everybody else. We don't have to let them do that. We do not have to let them do that. And we saw just in the last week what happens when we all say, well, screw that. We're not going to go along with this. What kind of petty tyrant goes after a comedian? Well, the answer is Donald Trump and other petty tyrants like him went after a comedian. What kind of failed leader says, okay, yeah, we'll agree with you on the comedian. We'll kick him out. Well, apparently Disney leadership. But then they didn't expect people to push back. and people did all around the country. Grassroots folks were out in Burbank and out in New York and in person, and then millions of people all over the country were watching this, canceling their subscriptions and yelling about it. And Disney got scared. They said, oh my gosh, I didn't know there was going to be any kind of countervailing pressure. I thought we could just do this and move on, and then Trump would stop pushing us. And in organizing in that way, what we witness is this guy's just a weak bully. This guy fronts as if he's got a lot of power, but when we organize and we stand up to him, he just folds. And we've seen that repeatedly. Look, we saw this in Chicago recently. He said, I'm going to Chicago, get ready for the War Department. And J.B. Pritzker and all the other leaders in Chicago stood up and said, get the hell out of here.
No, and all the people here. I mean, I'm so proud of my city and the people who organized. And by the way, the Indivisible group here is fabulous. You know, we were all over this.
Everybody stood up and said, get the hell out of here. We're not going to just roll over for you. And he said, okay, well, maybe I'll go to Memphis instead. Yeah. I mean, and that's how this works. And so I hope, again, like if there's one number one takeaway, don't listen to me or anybody else who's a talking head talking at you. The one thing that I would want people to understand is that the folks who are trying to control you can't control you without your agreement. That if you organize, they don't got it. They don't got the cards. This guy's a weak, pathetic, lame duck president who's on his way out. He's lashing out as he's cornered. It is a temporary state of the American democracy that we're in. We can get to a better state if we actually build and wield our power. But that requires all of us to stop just doom scrolling, stop just consuming politics, and start being active participants in the political process.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to say that thing that I was thinking was irrelevant because it's
okay.
But look, often Americans are so wrought by the moment we're in that they watch the news or they scroll on their phone and they're emotionally exhausted and they're so tired they think they've actually done a good day's work in fighting back.
Yeah.
You know, that's not real work. That's exhausting. But when you do the real work, it actually gives you energy. And everybody I've ever known who's been to one of these rallies has made new friends, has expanded their social life in interesting ways, has felt renewed by it, not beaten down by it.
Yep. Look, we have around 2,300 active Indivisible groups now all across the country in just about every congressional district, every state, of course, several countries now too. They're popping out. A new one in Reykjavik just registered last week.
Nice.
So they're all over. But what I hear a lot from Indivisible group leaders, these are not professional politicos. These are pissed off Americans and non-Americans who say, I don't like what's happening. I'm not happy with the leadership right now pushing back. I guess I've got to do something. Here's what I'm going to do. And they're driven to do something, not just to consume politics, to do something. And they find other folks who are driven to do that too. And so these groups start with a clear goal in mind. They want to change the world. They want to contribute to achieving a shared goal. But that's not the only reason they stay together. To your point, Edwin, they started to change the world and they keep on coming back together because they like each other, because they're fun places to join with other human beings to commiserate, to plan, to have fun, and to fill their souls with something meaningful. Yeah. So I really hope, aside from even putting aside politics, putting aside Indivisible, I hope one of the outcomes of the era we're in is people rediscover each other and the value of joining together in community. Because aside from any individual political fight we're in, I think if we're going to build a flourishing society, we need people talking to each other in real life, in person, talking about how we solve problems together. I
mean, I've always thought, I've seen this in good political campaigns, and I see it in good grassroots efforts for causes, and I see it a lot in Indivisible. Leaving aside the cause, the politics, it builds stronger, healthier communities in every possible, more resilient communities in every possible way. It's just, it's an end in itself, even if it is.
It is indeed.
Yeah. All right. And I know people are pissed off, and that's one of the reasons they do it. But when you go and talk to people in these groups, I also hear that it isn't just what they're against. They actually have, in talking to each other, are able to articulate a vision of what they're for, of the kind of America they want us to live in.
That's right.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
I think, again, I think there's real power in coming together in person to discuss these issues. I think that is the way we have ever gotten anything positive done in this country. If your view of politics is watching the cable news shows and signing an online petition, you're going to get depressed. You're going to burn out, and you're not going to actually accomplish anything. Politics is what we do. It's what we do. It's what we do together. That's how we accomplish big things. And you're going to feel better about it. And you're going to feel like there's a more positive future for the country and for your community and for your family if you do that. It feels, and for anybody like watching this or listening to this, and that it feels like, oh, that feels like new age stuff. Try it out. Prove me wrong. Go to a meeting, meet some people. Maybe you'll hate it. Fine. But try it out. I challenge you. If you've never been to a protest, if you've never been to a meeting, go check it out. Go to your local Indivisible group. It's going to have one coming up. Or go to No King's Day on October 18th. We're going to have the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. You can go show up, see if you like it. I think you're going to like it.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't the country that we formed in 1789. It's better, right? We got rid of slavery. We expanded women vote. We've been so many ways we've made this country better. We've set labor laws that make sense, and not one of those changes happened without people organizing and saying, "Hey, we can make the place better." Not one of them.
That's right. That's right.
All right, let's focus on the moment we're in.
Yeah.
And there are two things I want to ask you about. One are the upcoming elections, and there are a bunch of them that are right here. And the other is the funding fight.
Yes. Okay, great. Why don't I take the funding fight first, because that's coming up next Wednesday is the next big deadline. So for folks who aren't watching, the funding fight is one of these rare fights in Congress where we don't know how it's going to go down. And that's because the Democrats actually have leverage. Because the Democrats are in the minority, they rarely have leverage in these legislative fights. The Republicans just steamroll them, pass it on their own. Trump signs it into law. Or it's just dead in the water. They're messaging bills that are never going to get through. This is a rare case where the Republicans can't pass it just with 50 votes. And it's not just a messaging bill. You either fund the government or it shuts down. So that means we don't know exactly how this is going to go down. In March, we were arguing along with the good government groups, around with the Federal Employees Union, around with the pro-democracy groups, all our grassroots partners, that the Democrats should not give in to Republican demands.
I remember that, and I was with you on that. And it's a shame we did, because it included, it wasn't a clean bill. It included something that lets Donald Trump have these endless emergencies. This is truly terrible thing.
It wasn't that it was a bad deal. It was that it was no deal. The Democrats in the Senate, specifically led by Chuck Schumer, just surrendered entirely.
Yeah, we got nothing.
And we got absolutely nothing. Zilch. Now, the blowback was enormous. The blowback from our side was enormous. And I wouldn't say the Democrats are now a full unified opposition party, but they got the message that if they repeat what they did in March, they're going to face some serious problems heading into primary season. So what we see now is the government is set to run out of funding next week on September 1st, or sorry, on October 1st at the end of September.
Yep.
And the Republicans have put forward their partisan bill, and the Democrats have said, no, we want you to restore Medicaid cuts. We want you to restore the ACA tax credit so that the premiums don't go skyrocketing. And we want to do away with these budget shenanigans that allow Donald Trump to do whatever the hell he wants with the budget. And the Republicans said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not even going to hold votes. And Trump said, I'm not even going to meet with you on that.
Right.
So I've been plenty critical of Democratic leadership over the last several months. I wouldn't be shy to point out if I thought this was stupid or they weren't fighting back. I think this is a moment where we got to be really clear that we're playing an inside-outside game right now, where there are folks on the inside who are fighting. There is a play that we are making right now, which is we have our demands. Our side has stated them very clearly. We have drawn the line in the sand, and it's the outside folks' job to run that play, run that play full tilt. Now, I retain the right to criticize leadership's moves after this point, but right now we are on the same team. We're all pushing in the same direction, and we want the Democrats to hold firm. So I'm cheerleading Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer as long as they are holding the line.
Yeah,
and we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. I suspect that if we are able to hold tight, the Republicans are not going to want to go home to their constituents and say, I've shut down the government so that I can close more rural hospitals. I've shut down the government so that I can raise your insurance premiums. The Democrats are asking me to lower your insurance premiums. The Democrats are asking me to save your rural hospitals, but that's too much for me. That's why the government is shut down. I think it's a losing argument. I think it's going to be very
or I'm sorry that the Democrats are asking that we pass a budget, and it's an actual budget. And instead, we just want to give a pot of money to Donald Trump to do whatever he wants with it, and get rid of the ability for Congress to say. And I think that's a tough sell too across the country.
It is. Look, the mob boss wants his slush fund. We're not going to give it to him.
Yep. All right. So let's stand firm on that. Now, we have upcoming elections, really important ones, including horrible redistricting fight that we're in all over the country. But that's come to California. We have some Supreme Court races. We have all kinds of things. Talk about what's at stake.
Right. So I think people, when they think of elections, they think either presidential every 4 years or midterms every 2 years. And so the election, are we talking about that? That's 14 months away. No, there are actually a lot of important elections, as you're noting, Edwin, all over the country this year because of how states run their elections and state by state. We've got elections for state legislature in New Jersey and Virginia, also governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. We've got Proposition 50 in California, as you mentioned, which is California's attempt to respond to the Texas gerrymandering. We'll say, as somebody who has fought against gerrymandering as long as I've been engaged in politics, I think we should have a national ban on gerrymandering. I would welcome Republicans in Congress embracing a national ban on gerrymandering. I would welcome California Republicans coming out and saying, we need a national ban on gerrymandering. What I will not do is unilaterally disarm in a fight for democracy where the Republicans are systematically rigging the rules. So in California, we've got the power to redistrict. We should redistrict. It's going forward to a vote on Proposition 50. Indivisibles across the state are running a program to get out the vote. I think we're going to win it. I think we're going to win it.
I do too.
Beyond that, we've also got Pennsylvania Supreme Court race. That's important for pushing back against election shenanigans that could be coming in the not too distant future. Mm-hmm. So what I would recommend is if you're in one of these states, this is one of the most high impact things you can do right now, go and getting out the vote. Most people in the country can't have as much impact as you in Virginia or New Jersey or Pennsylvania or California. You may have other local elections near you. Make clear that the people are paying attention and we're pushing back against this authoritarian overreach. So I would, there are some of those high profile ones I mentioned, but there are going to be other ones locally that I would highly recommend folks get engaged. And if you were just chomping at the bit and you're like, oh no, but I live in X state and there aren't meaningful elections that I should be engaging in now, we do have ways, and others too, to go into phone banking and text banking and postcarding. By all means, check that out. That does do some good. It's not nearly as much impact, though, as showing up in person. So again, you people who actually are living in those key states and where those key elections are happening, you got power other folks don't have. Use it.
Yeah, really important right now. Really important. And those Supreme Court races in the states are they're the firewall to protect elections integrity in those states. And we've seen it, but we've seen that near where I live in Wisconsin. Winning that Supreme Court made an enormous difference, not just for the people of Wisconsin, but for the people of the entire country. It's enormously important.
It is indeed important. And it's also, look, can I just be honest? It's important to notch some wins during an authoritarian breakthrough moment. And we're going to have some wins. The Wisconsin Supreme Court race earlier this year, when Musk was riding high and Trump had high approval ratings and they were going to go and buy that election. And then we stomped them all across the state.
It was so fun.
Musk spent $20 million to buy that Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, and we just beat him thoroughly. I mean, come on. If we believe we have a constitutional republic, let's act like we do. Let's actually fight in these elections to win. So I think we can win. I do not think the elections are so rigged that the backlash isn't going to overwhelm the opposition. And in fact, it's important that we overwhelm the opposition. So
a fun story, when Harold Washington, who was Chicago's first black mayor, was running, and he was up against tons of money. And he would go into he knew his communities. He would go into communities where people were struggling. And he would say, and then somebody would say, like, what do you think? They're in here passing around cash. And he wouldn't answer the reporters. He would turn to the people and say, take their money and vote for me. And that's what everybody did. They took Elon Musk's money and they voted, to send him packing.
I think that the reality is this is not a popular regime. It really isn't. And if people are given the chance to vote against it, they're going to vote against it. Donald Trump is underwater on all the supposedly strong issues that he has. He's underwater on the economy, on inflation, on immigration, on crime. People don't trust the guy, and for good reason, because he's going around weaponizing the DOJ or invading and occupying American cities or sending a secret police force around the country and doing jack shit for everybody else.
Well, don't leave off that list lining his own pocket.
And that is the purpose of his presidency. He is about it is a grift on a historic global scale. And if it weren't tragic and causing massive harm to human beings all around the world, you would just be impressed by how successfully he has wielded the full might and power of the United States to get a few more bucks for his own bank account.
Yeah, we can work on the movie after he's gone. So let's talk a little bit about the trainings that you've done.
Yeah.
Like the last time we talked, you were about to do the first national training, and it was a bigger success than even you had planned. And now you've got another one coming. Talk about how you're helping us exercise that muscle that we talked about, in new and interesting ways.
Yeah. So Indivisible has always been focused on what is your power as an individual and how do you actually build that power by joining with other folks. And that means organizing, bringing people together, but it also means picking strategic fights, like identifying where you have leverage. Not every fight is strategic. There are terrible things happening in this world that you could spend a lot of time railing against, but you don't have the leverage to do something about it in the near term. And so when we were looking at the conditions on the ground, what we understood was, look, pushing your member of Congress, pushing your elected officials, that's part of the fight right now. But that's actually not the only place where the fight against authoritarian overreach is happening. We were seeing, and this is different from Trump 1, we were seeing leaders of major institutions, media institutions, universities, law firms, businesses, just fall over, roll over and play dead. Not even at a threat, but even at a hint of a threat. Suddenly they are falling over. And that's really scary. That's really scary. That's not just a law being passed by a complacent or compliant Republican majority. That is civil society breaking down and allowing the authoritarian to steamroll through. And so what we wanted to do coming out of No Kings in June was train people up on, okay, what does it mean to identify the pillars of support for democracy? What are those pillars of support that either can stand up for democracy or crumble in response to pressure from an authoritarian? And they're like a Disney or a Columbia University or ABC News or a CBS News. There are these institutions that are led by leaders who write books on leadership and talk about the principles behind the media as an institution in American democracy, or the role of law firms in supporting the rule of law, or universities in supporting a democratic culture, and then to see them fall one after the other is
rapidly and without even trying to stand up forcefully. Yeah.
And so this is both very dangerous and also a big opportunity. Let me talk about why it's dangerous, but let me talk about why it's a big opportunity for two big reasons in my mind. One is we've got to recognize, Edwin, we're talking about politics right now. This is a niche topic. Most of the time, most people are not paying attention to politics. It does not break through. I watch it and listen to it and think about it all the time, as do you, as do Indivisible folks. But if we're going to build a pro-democracy movement, we got to reach beyond the folks who are just thinking about politics all the time. We have to reach the people who think about Marvel, who think about what's happening in their local school, who think about what their university that they graduated from 10 years ago is doing now, and might not think about what is happening politically. So in an effort to build a pro-democracy movement, we should be engaging in those fights and saying, hey, you might not care about all this BS happening with the FCC or this stuff happening with Congress or what the administration is doing, but look at this that you are paying attention to. Let's talk about how we move that. And then that comes to the second opportunity, which is, look, members of Congress are used to being pushed by constituents. That's a thing that is part of the job description. University presidents, media
leaders, they're terrified.
They do not like it.
They don't know what to do.
Do not like it. They don't know what to do. And so when you think about, like, where do I have leverage? Is yelling at Ted Cruz going to give me anything? By all means, yell at Ted Cruz because he's a jerk and he's supporting the anti-democratic fascists. But is he going to move based on that? No, he loves being yelled at by pro-democracy advocates. But the head of Disney, no. The head of Disney likes to think of himself as a principled leader, as somebody who is maybe even Democratic leaning, left of center certainly, and wants to be remembered as somebody who stood up for democracy. So when he is suddenly in the limelight, when there's pressure overwhelmingly against him, he's like, oh, whoa. This is not what I signed up for. And we saw that. We saw that last week, as we were just talking about. That kind of pressure has immediate impact, pulls tons of people in who would never pay attention to some congressional hearing. And so the trainings that we've been doing were focused on, let's identify those opportunities. Let's create a framework for how you individually can identify those opportunities in your community. And then let's run campaigns there in addition to engaging on these congressional fights that are necessary.
Yeah, I mean, and we're beginning to do things differently in part because of that. I mean, I noticed, in the last No Kings rally and in a lot of the rallies we have in Chicago, people, they march from one government square to another. It hasn't yet occurred to them that they could march around, because it's right there, JP Morgan Chase, and say, when are you going to stand up for the principle that the government shouldn't be forcing themselves to own pieces of stock from companies, or these tariffs are bad for the economy? Get out there and say it. We could take, a left turn or a right turn and be right at these big corporate centers and having our voice heard too.
And I think there are some lessons that we can learn from the Disney experience. The Disney experience. So a couple of things that I took from it. One, the speed with which Disney capitulated was actually very helpful to us, because FCC lead Brendan Carr made a threat. Within hours, 24 hours or so, Disney capitulated immediately. Kimmel off the air. It was very clear what had just happened. So one, a clear connection between the regime's behavior and the capitulation. Two, like I said, the target for Disney is a target that is susceptible to public pressure. If you're thinking about targeting Sinclair nationally, they're basically an arm of the Republican Party, more or less. They're a propaganda arm. Sinclair doesn't care about pro-democracy pressure at a national level. I don't think it makes for a good target for that reason. Local affiliates,
stations,
yes, and that's right. So this is why when I'm thinking about how can we actually wield this power, it's not let's just feel good about yelling at the evil Sinclair empire that's spreading propaganda everywhere. No, it's, oh wait, you got a Seattle affiliate of Sinclair, so in a blue city that depends on businesses that exist in that community and that depends on voters who live in that community. Let's see how you can pressure that affiliate. That is where there is actual leverage, and that is a local version of Disney. So right now, 20%, I believe, of Kimmel's reach. I'm in DC right now. I can't see Kimmel. He's not being shown on ABC because it's the Nexstar affiliate. That kind of local pressure, I think, could work. And I'm seeing Indivisible groups and others start to put pressure in that local way. And that is exactly what we want to see. Not national campaigns is part of it. A big Disney campaign, great. But we're not going to have that all the time. And your most effective leverage isn't necessarily
locally. It's happening here with WGN TV, the next.
Yes. So there we go.
Absolutely.
So what I would encourage people to do is you want a framework for engaging in this, but you're smart, you're strategic, you know more about the local conditions. Don't wait for somebody to give you the campaign plan. Understand that you're looking for leverage, you're looking for a good target that could be moved, and to get a lot of people together and create some creative campaigns. I think that's how we achieve scale, not by just doing big national campaigns, but replicating the basic model at the local level again and again and again.
All right, talk about the upcoming No Kings Day. That's going to be fabulous.
No Kings is going to be huge. So, whenever you throw a party and you send the invites out, you don't know who's going to show up, and you don't know if you're going to get the numbers. And
you don't have a big enough room.
And that is going to be the main challenge now. So I think we are set by this weekend or early next week to surpass the number of events that we saw on No Kings in June, which was at the time the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. 2,169 events, 27 countries, every state, every congressional district. There are going to be more on October 18th. There are going to be more. I can say that with a high degree of confidence now. So this is really important, because at a time when our First Amendment rights are under attack, the single best thing we can do to protect those rights is to exercise those rights. Yeah. He is so scared of peaceful protests. He's so scared he will go after a comedian for criticizing him. The way that we protect ourselves, the way that we protect our democracy, is show up and make clear we don't do kings here. We do not do kings here. So I would highly recommend to anybody watching, go to nokings.org, find your local protest. If there's not one within 30 minutes or an hour of you, I mean, it's a rough estimate, but something like that, start your own. Get a few friends together, put it on the map. You're going to see a lot of people come out. This is not supposed to be just in the big city centers. It will be that, but it will be much bigger than that. It will be everywhere, and it will send a very clear message that these are our First Amendment rights and we're not giving them away. So
important. I love going to the last one. had some fun stories sometime I'll tell you about the people I met there. But people were they were just thrilled to be
Yes.
part of it. They
Yeah.
were thrilled to be part of it. Thrilled. And it wasn't like they loved the speeches. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
they agreed with everything they heard, but it just meant so much to be not alone when a government is telling you you are all alone, but
Yeah.
to be in a sea of people who are not going to put up with seeing this great country torn apart.
Yeah, there's there's a phrase, I've talked about this before a little bit. For anybody who's been to like big church events or big concerts, there's a phrase called collective effervescence,
Yep.
where this sense that you get by being in community with a large number of other people with kind of a shared identity or shared purpose or shared orientation. And I know what we're doing is scary because the fascists are coming at us and they're attacking comedians and they're occupying cities. And this is serious and historic. And that is one element of it. But the other part of this is people coming together in boisterous, powerful celebration of their own power. And it really feels good, Edwin. It just feels right. It feels like you're engaging in something that is humanizing and fills your cup in a way that is just hard to replicate by doom scrolling. I will say, I just think so I hope people, we got to be able to carry two things. We're doing something important here. This isn't just for show. This isn't just to see our names in the paper or to feel like we're on the right side of history. It's strategic. What we know from the experts in authoritarianism is this kind of wide-scale, geographically dispersed people protest is what works against authoritarians. So that is true. It's a real important thing. And also, it's a fun thing. It is welcoming. There are people with their dogs and their kids and they're dancing. There's music and there are funny signs and there's laughing and joking. It's just, gosh, it's the place to be. It's the place to be.
It's a festival for democracy is what it is.
Indeed. That's right.
Yeah. So Ezra, one last thought, and it's a thought that we can continue in our next set of conversations over the year, but I think what you're doing may finally break the congressional gridlock that's gone on for decades, because we've left politics to the politicians and they fight for the edges, and so the country's been split. But if we decide that we are going to exercise the citizen muscle again, if you believe the polling about America, there is a huge majority to be cobbled together for a movement and politicians that are brave enough to break with the professional pals on the edges and say, this is how we want to move the country forward. And that happened, FDR found that. I think it's findable again, but only in an era where people are willing to say, yeah, we're not outsourcing this democracy to the edges.
Yeah, I think we got to dare to hope for that, Edwin. I think, and the thing that gives me hope for that is a combination of two things. One, just how fed up normal people are with the system as it is, both with the failed version of the Democratic Party that we've had for so many years, and with the fascism that they're seeing from the Republicans, and this general sense the government just isn't there to serve them. So in this world that we're envisioning here, it's one in which this is the post-Trump era. Trump is gone. His MAGA is lost. We have built a trifecta government that is able to govern. And the ideas that need to drive that government cannot just be the warmed over ideas from 2012 or 2016 or 2020. They have to re-envision what is the social contract? What can politics be in this new world? And that should be at the scale of a reconstruction or a post-World War II era where we actually get to re-envision what is possible. And we're starting to see some evidence of that, I think, healthy division within the party that could show the way forward. Mamdani right now in New York, who didn't just win as an outsider and didn't just win with policy ideas, but that won arguing that politics is worth believing in, and convinced a lot of young people to actually come out for him in a citywide election in a way that we just haven't seen in recent American history. And I think it's no surprise to me that Democratic leadership, this was 3 months ago that he won the Democratic primary, that Democratic leadership in Congress, Schumer and Jeffries both, have yet to endorse the guy. I think that what that points to, and we can shake our head and we can disappoint that, but I actually think that's, initially I was very annoyed and angry with this, and I remain very annoyed and angry at some level. But what they said to me is, this is a schism. Mamdani's the future. Like this orientation towards the establishment that he's representing, that is the future. Schumer and Jeffries, they're either going to have to catch up or they're going to be replaced by other folks who actually know where politics is going. And my hope is that that's not some far away future that we'll eventually fight for. We're heading towards a primary season in the next several months where we get to either accept the current Democratic Party or demand something better. So I hope everybody listening, if you've got an open race or if you've got a non-open race and there is a challenger to a rollover and play dead Democrat, you're giving that a hard look, because if you want to live in a different kind of political future, the way that you bring that home to us and make that reality is by demanding a better party. And your tactic for doing that is engagement in the primaries coming up.
Yeah, I think it'll come through the primaries naturally. I just believe Americans are ready for a change to the status quo. And when we get ready and when we are out exercising this organizing muscle, we get change, and we get change that keeps us in mind for once. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think that the status quo is quite powerful, and change is not going to come automatically. Change is going to come if we get engaged and demand it. And then we will achieve some portion of that. It will not be enough. We will be unsatisfied. And then we're going to have to.
That's how the country moves. That's how history moves forward.
And that is how history moves forward.
Yeah. Well, that is a great place to end, Ezra. As always, thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for the unbelievable work you've done. And I look forward to being, one of a few million people who are out there on No King's Day.
I'll be out there with you. Thanks, Edwin. Talk soon.
Take care. Bye.